Sentinel guarded portal to Underworld, human weaver's heist, sealed hell forever. The strange warble of twisted space hummed against Jalen's jaw as he slipped along the luminous corridors of the Zephyrian relay, the low purr of the security lattice nearly lost beneath his deft manipulations. Every movement was calculated, his hands gliding over control nodes with the confidence of a master thief. He moved like a shadow among shifting bands of opal light, eyes narrowed, scanning the translucent walls for any flicker of detection. Each stolen heartbeat was a risk, but he relished the tension, the sensation of dancing at the edge of annihilation. A flick of his wrist, a whispered override in Helian code, and the first data node shimmered open. Alien glyphs scrolled across the interface, their meaning unfolding in Jalen's mind as he ran the decryption protocols. Every line of intelligence he siphoned, fleet positions, quantum signatures, whispers of the Zephyrian core, brought him closer to the Nexus, closer to humanity's last, desperate hope. His comm crackled, a faint murmur in his ear. Director Miles's voice, measured and low, pulsed through the link. "Report." Jalen allowed himself a smile. "Still breathing, sir. Zephyrian defense grid's better than anything we've seen. I'm inside the outer relay now, pulling what I can. Be careful. If they catch you." "They won't," he promised, even as his fingers raced to seal a bypass. "This is just a scouting run. I'll have something for you soon." He disconnected, suppressing the ache of nerves. The Helios Accord called Jalen their final gambit, but he wore the title with a wry grin. The galaxy had grown desperate, stars flickered out one by one, worlds lost to the entropy gnawing at reality's seams. The Zephyrians, their technology unfathomable, were unraveling everything in their panicked search for survival. The Accord believed the heart of Lysara was the source. If Jalen could reach it, seal it, he might halt the collapse. But the cost would be steep. He wondered sometimes if he was the hero or simply the last fool left standing. A pulse of static rippled through the corridor, and suddenly, an alarm blared. Not from his intrusion, but from deeper within the station. Harsh, discordant, the klaxon echoed off the crystal walls. Jalen froze, heart pounding. Had the Zephyrians detected him? He pressed himself into a shadowed alcove, breath shallow. From the corridor's far end, reality shimmered. A distortion, as if the air itself were folding. Out of the rippling light stepped a figure, tall, impossibly poised, her skin a tapestry of iridescent blue scales that caught the relay's glow and scattered it in all directions. High cheekbones lent her face a fierce beauty, and her eyes, liquid silver, locked onto Jalen with a predator's focus. Sleek opalescent armor clung to her athletic frame, every line accentuating strength and grace. She spoke, her voice low and musical, yet edged with command. "You do not belong here, human." Jalen straightened, keeping his tone light. "I was just admiring the decor, Zephyrian architecture, very luminous. Little hard on the eyes, though." The Zephyrian sentinel's lips curved in a faint, mocking smile. "Surrender, or this will be your last sight." Her energy staff snapped into her grasp, crackling with blue lightning. She advanced, every step measured, eyes never leaving him. Jalen dropped into a low stance, fingers twitching as he summoned the resonance, his own way of bending space. He flicked his hand, and the corridor seemed to stretch, folding him sideways as he dodged her initial strike. She adapted instantly, staff whipping in a deadly arc. Jalen warped the air, slipping just beyond the blow, then darted forward, palm outstretched. The two forces met, a surge of her raw power and his nimble manipulation of reality, sending ripples through the corridor. Their battle became a charged duet, his feints and spatial tricks met by her inhuman reflexes and centuries of training. He grinned, breathless. "Not bad for a Zephyrian." "Not bad for a human," she shot back, driving him against the wall with a burst of energy. Jalen rolled away, barely avoiding a snap of the staff that left a scorch mark where his head had been. Sweat beaded on his brow. He could feel the resonance of her will, a force as relentless as the pull of a collapsing star. Each clash was more than violence. It was a collision of philosophies, of worlds. For a heartbeat, their eyes met, and something strange passed between them. Respect, challenge, perhaps something deeper. He feinted left, then tore open a fleeting rift in space. Colors bled and twisted as he vanished, leaving Saris standing in the corridor, her silver eyes narrowed in shock and, perhaps, intrigue. The echo of their battle hung in the air, a promise of unfinished business. Back at the Helios Accord's staging point, Jalen landed hard, pulse racing. Director Miles awaited him, face drawn with exhaustion. "You met resistance?" Jalen nodded, voice steady despite the adrenaline. "Saris herself. She's good. Damn good." Miles leaned forward, urgency sharpening his features. "The heart of Lysara is still the epicenter of the unraveling. We need the resonance cipher. It's hidden deep within their sanctuaries. Your mission hasn't changed. Secure the cipher, reach the heart, and seal it." Jalen hesitated, remembering the look in Saris's eyes. "And if doing that means destroying her world?" A shadow flickered across Miles's face, but his answer was cold, absolute. "We do what we must. Billions of lives depend on you." Jalen nodded, though the weight of it pressed on him heavier than Zephyrian gravity. He glanced at the data node he'd secured, one more step down a path he might not return from. Meanwhile, in the void, Saris paced her vessel, the memory of Jalen's escape haunting her thoughts. No one had ever eluded her like this human infiltrator. He was an anomaly, a danger, and a puzzle. She initiated pursuit, driven not just by duty, but by the strange pull he exerted, a challenge she could not ignore. The game was on, and neither of them would back down. Saris hunted Jalen across the nexus points of the galaxy, their confrontations erupting in the ruins of collapsed nebulae and the remnants of lost realities. Each pursuit became legend among Zephyrian command, a story whispered in the halls of strategy, a warning etched into the minds of every sentinel. Jalen was a shadow, impossible to pin down, leaving Zephyrian patrols in confusion and disbelief. One would swear they'd cornered him in the spectral wreckage of a dying star, only to find an empty echo where he'd been. Another would find an entire squad entangled in their own security fields, tripped by his uncanny manipulation of energy and space. But Saris refused to be outmatched. Each time, she recalibrated her tactics, studied the traces he left behind, temporal ripples, spatial scars, even the faintest heat signature of his passing. She anticipated his next moves, her pursuit relentless and unyielding. The dance drew them across broken moons and the ghostly shells of realities that had unraveled into nothingness. It was on the fractured remains of a moonlet, half its surface shredded by gravitational collapse, that Saris finally cornered him. Debris floated between them, jagged shards glinting in the pale starlight. She transmitted across the narrow-band comms, her voice steely and cold. "Surrender, Jalen. There's nowhere left to run." Jalen stood with his back to a sheer cliff of obsidian, sweat plastering his hair to his brow, the blue shimmer of his energy shield barely holding against the vacuum's bite. He drew a breath, steady despite the fatigue in his limbs, and grinned at the unseen sentinel. "Always so formal, Saris. Don't you ever get tired of reciting protocol?" His voice echoed in her calm, mocking and magnetic. Her reply was sharp, tinged with something almost like irritation. "I do not tire. I complete my mission. You will not escape this time." He laughed, the sound brittle. "Your faith in Lysara's heart, has it ever occurred to you it might be misplaced? Maybe you're fighting for something that's killing you." She lunged, staff spinning in a blue arc. Jalen braced as the weapon slammed into his warped shield, a cascade of sparks and raw force lighting up the void between them. The impact vibrated through his bones, but he didn't yield. He twisted space, sliding to her left, forcing her to pivot, tracking his movements with predatory precision. Their powers collided, her Zephyrian command of kinetic energy meeting his reality-bending tricks. A shockwave rippled outward, scattering pebbles and dust, casting brief shadows over their faces. For a fleeting instant they hovered inches apart, breathing the same thin, charged air. Danger and fascination tangled between them, a pulse neither could ignore. Ceres's eyes glinted with challenge. "You talk too much, human." "And you think too little," he retorted, ducking as she struck again. He twisted, feinted, forced her staff against his shield with such force the air crackled. Suddenly, the fractured ground beneath them began to give, the edges dissolving into a collapsing fissure. Jalen seized the opening, grinning as he vanished through the breach, his body flickering out of phase. Ceres was left on the crumbling edge, heart pounding, not just from exertion, but from something unfamiliar, something that lingered after each encounter. She watched the fissure close and felt more than anger. His defiance and unpredictability unsettled her, but also called to something she kept locked away. He was disorder to her order, and she found herself drawn to it, almost against her will. Their encounters multiplied, each more charged than the last. Across the broken bridge of the Altari remnants, through the haunted corridors of a derelict Zephyrian cruiser, their clashes became a dance of tension and attraction. Jalen began to anticipate Ceres's strategies, not only to evade capture, but to feel the press of her will against his own. Ceres, in turn, mapped his movements, each improvisation, each teasing escape, learning to read the flicker of his eyes and the telltale curl of his lips. Somewhere along the way, the line between adversary and ally blurred, replaced by an unspoken language of challenge and yearning. "Next time, I catch you," she warned, voice a velvet threat as they skirmished in the crystalline fields of Zedrun's wake. Jalen winked, panting, sweat streaking his jaw. "Wouldn't dream of making it too easy." Their rapport became as much a part of their battles as the crackle of energy and the hum of torn space. Sometimes, in the aftermath, Ceres found herself replaying his words, the brush of his hand, the electricity in his gaze. She hated that she looked forward to their next encounter. But the mission pressed on. Jalen's next objective brought him to the core of Zephyrian secrecy, the legendary Data Vault, a labyrinth of crystalline towers and sentient currents that pulsed with forbidden knowledge. He slipped past patrols, using every trick and bit of Helios tech at his disposal. The corridors shimmered with refracted light, each step threatening to trip ancient, lethal traps. The deeper he went, the more the air thickened with memory and danger. He reached a vault chamber vast as a cathedral, its ceiling lost in swirling mist, crystalline pillars rising all around. Holographic glyphs spun above a central pedestal, the possible hiding place of the resonant cipher. Jalen began his search, sweat cold on his skin, nerves taut. Then the air shifted. A familiar, unmistakable presence pressed against his senses. Ceres was near. He spun just as she materialized from a curtain of light, her form sharper, more radiant than ever. Her presence was overwhelming, every line of her body taut with purpose, her silver eyes fixed on him with an intensity that threatened to unmake him. "So this is where you hide," she said, voice low and dangerous. Jalen raised his hands, palms open, energy crackling. "You found me. Was starting to think you'd lost your edge." She advanced, staff ready, every step echoing with authority. "Surrender, Jalen. I will not ask again." He shook his head. "Not until you hear me out." But she did not pause. Her staff lashed out, sending arcs of blue lightning across the chamber. Jalen threw up his shield, its edges flickering as the force slammed into him. Crystals shattered, fragments spinning in slow motion. They battled across the vault, her strikes relentless, his maneuvers desperate but precise. At last, she pressed him against his own shield, the field flickering under her weight. Her breath misted the barrier, their faces mere inches apart. For a moment, The world shrank to the space between them, charged, perilous, intimate. Her eyes searched his, as if seeking something hidden. The shield faltered. She struck, forcing him down, her staff poised at his throat. Their eyes locked, the air thick with peril and electric longing. "You're mine, human," Saris declared, her voice trembling with triumph and something unspoken. Jalen, pinned and unbowed, met her gaze. "You need to know the truth. The heart of Lysara, it's not salvation. It's a slow poison. You're fighting to save a world already dying." She hesitated, confusion flickering in her eyes. He fumbled for the device at his belt, holding it out with shaking fingers. "This contains records, forbidden ones, testimonies from your own scientists, those who saw what the heart really is." Saris's grip on her staff wavered. "Lies, more human deceit." "Listen," he urged, his voice soft, pleading. "You've seen the unraveling. It started after the heart was activated. Your people covered it up, blamed outsiders, entropy, anything but the truth. You deserve to know." She snatched the device, eyes never leaving his. As the data unfolded before her, voices speaking in haunted Zephyrian, images of decay, reports of irreversible collapse, her conviction crumbled. Grief twisted her features, disbelief and sorrow flooding in. For the first time since their pursuit began, she seemed vulnerable, the unshakable sentinel shaken to her core. Jalen reached up, his hand trembling, and touched hers where it gripped the staff. Their fingers met, entwining. The moment hung between them, a bond forged in shared pain and understanding, a comfort beyond words. In that fragile silence, amid the ruins of certainty, something new and powerful took root, binding them closer than any battle ever could. The truth weighed heavily on Saris. The heart of Lysara, once a sacred source, was a parasite, devouring the cosmos and sealing Zephyrian fate. Centuries of devotion, revealed as a tragic error. Her hands trembled as she replayed the forbidden records, voices of long-silenced dissenters echoing off crystalline walls. The certainty that had guided her every breath was gone, replaced by a hollow ache. Jalen was at her side, voice gentle, eyes steady. He knelt, reaching for her hand, brushing away a shimmering tear that clung to her cheek. "You couldn't have known," he murmured, his thumb tracing the fine scales along her jaw. "You were trying to save your people. So was I." She leaned into his touch, the gesture wordless, a surrender to shared loss. The distance between them, between Zephyrian and human, collapsed in that fragile moment. "My whole life has been a lie," Saris whispered, her voice raw. "We revered the heart, gave everything to protect it, and all this time..." Jalen's own sorrow flickered in his gaze. "We all build our lives on stories, Saris. Sometimes the hardest thing is to see when the story turns against us." A silence fell, thick with the weight of revelations and regret. Saris straightened, determination stealing her features. "I must see for myself. I need proof." Together they turned to the forbidden Zephyrian archives, far beyond the security fields and digital sentinels. The process was grueling, layer upon layer of encrypted memories, traps woven into the data. Jalen supported her, his hands quick on the interfaces, his knowledge of human resistance archives proving unexpectedly valuable. Side by side, they sifted through secrets buried for centuries. Saris's brow furrowed as she accessed a hidden log, her voice barely above a whisper. "Here, the dissenters, they documented their findings. Our elders silenced them, erased all record from the communal mind. But it's all here. The energy leach, the resonance imbalance, the warnings about the heart's decay." She pulled up a schematic, lines of Zephyrian glyphs swirling between them. Jalen leaned close, reading the translation. "This is the resonance cipher?" Her silver eyes met his, hope and fear warring in her expression. "It's not a weapon. It's a restoration matrix. But it needs two perspectives, two signatures, Zephyrian and human. She exhaled, the realization dawning with each word. It was never meant for conquest. It was meant for union. Jalen smiled, tired but earnest. Then we do it together. The universe doesn't care about our divisions. It just wants balance. In the uneasy hours of her captivity, their relationship shifted. The icy formality that had defined their encounters melted away. No longer enemies, but two souls facing a cosmic reckoning, they found comfort in each other's company. Saris, stripped of armor and command, sat with Jalen on the cold floor of the data vault, her iridescent hair brushing his shoulder as she pored over the cipher's code. Their faces drew close, breaths mingling, the silence between them vibrating with unspoken desire and new trust. Jalen's fingers drifted to her arm, hesitant, tracing the intricate pattern of blue and silver scales. "I've never met anyone like you," he confessed softly. "Not just because you're Zephyrian, because you're you." She closed her eyes at his touch, a quiet sigh escaping her lips. "I have never let myself be this vulnerable. You make me question everything, Jalen Weaver." He smiled, brushing a stray lock of her hair from her face. "Then we're even. You've changed everything for me, too." Saris let her head rest briefly against his shoulder, absorbing his warmth. "The cipher. It needs us both. Our energy, our will, in harmony. I don't know if it's possible, but we must try. For both our peoples." Jalen's hand found hers, their fingers entwining with surprising ease. "We'll make it possible. Together." The moment hung between them, tender, electric, dangerous. Duty and longing swirled in the same breath. Saris lifted her gaze, hope flickering in her silver eyes. "We must do this together," she whispered, the words a vow as much as a plan. The unity between them hardened into resolve. The data vault, however, remained a prison. Zephyrian alarms were already echoing through the crystalline corridors. Jalen scanned the vault's schematics, a plan forming. "We'll have to fight our way out. They'll never let us reach the heart if they know what we're doing." Saris nodded, her composure returning. "I know these halls better than any. Trust me, Weaver. I will get you out." He offered a crooked grin. "You lead. I'll improvise." They moved through the labyrinthine corridors side by side, every sense alert. The first opposition came quickly. Elite Zephyrian guards, armor gleaming, weapons raised. Jalen reached into the quantum fabric, warping the light and sound, cloaking their movements in shifting illusions. Saris surged ahead, her staff a blur of energy and motion, dispatching two guards before they even realized what struck them. In a narrow hall, hemmed in by three sentinels, Jalen conjured a shifting barrier, a ripple of blue energy that bent their shots away. "I can't hold this forever," he grunted, sweat beading his brow. Saris glanced back, her eyes alight with battle fire. "Stay behind me, Weaver." Her voice was fierce, commanding. She sprang forward, her movements a dance, spinning, striking, her staff arcing with power. She moved with stunning grace, every strike a blend of artistry and lethal intent. The sentinels fell, disarmed and stunned, left in a tangled heap. Jalen lowered the barrier, breathless. He stared at her, admiration clear in his eyes. "You're extraordinary, Saris." She turned, a flush of color rising beneath her scales. "We make a formidable pair." He stepped closer, reaching for her cheek, fingers trembling. Their eyes met, and the tumult of fear and hope, loss and longing, found a focus in that single point of contact. "I mean it," he whispered, voice rough. "You're extraordinary." Saris leaned into his hand, their foreheads nearly touching. Her fingers found his, entwining. The threat of discovery, the uncertainty of their mission, the fate of both species, none of it seemed to matter just then. The current between them was undeniable, a passion born of danger and truth. The universe trembled on the brink, but as they stood together in the afterglow of battle, there was only the charged silence and the certainty that whatever came next, they would face it united. Their journey to the heart of Lysara was a trek through realms of wild energy, guided by Ceres's ancestral intuition. She led them through crystalline ravines that pulsed with shifting light, her hand tracing the patterns of old glyphs etched into the walls by generations of Zephyrian sentinels. Jalen followed closely, his senses tuned to every vibration in the air, the weave ready to twist reality at a moment's notice. When the terrain became treacherous, she extended her hand, their fingers lacing for balance, a silent exchange of comfort and promise. "Are you sure it's this way?" Jalen asked, voice hushed as another spectral guardian flared to life in the shadows ahead. Ceres glanced over her shoulder, her iridescent hair catching the glow of floating crystals. "I remember these paths from the initiation rites. The old voices guide me. Trust the land, Weaver. Trust us." He squeezed her hand, warmth flaring between their palms. "I do. More than you know." They moved together, their footsteps echoing through the vast halls where reality rippled at the edges. Jalen's weaving protected them from energy surges, his quick improvisations shielding them from traps and spectral sentries. Ceres's presence was a beacon, her connection to Lysara's pulse keeping them on course. Each obstacle, each whispered threat, only drew them closer, hands brushing and lingering at every turn. They entered the corridor of echoes, a narrow passage alive with disembodied Zephyrian voices. The air pressed in with 1,000 murmurs, fragments of memory and regret, doubt and warning. Jalen flinched, a cold sweat breaking out across his brow as the voices burrowed into his mind. Jalen Weaver, betrayer, unworthy. You will fail. He staggered, clutching his head, visions swimming with phantom images, old failures, lost friends, the faces of those he could not save. Darkness clawed at the edges of his resolve. But then Ceres was there, wrapping an arm around his waist, her strength a lifeline. "Hold on, Weaver." "Don't let them in," she murmured, her lips close to his ear, the scent of her calming, her touch an anchor. He leaned into her, her heartbeat steady against his side. "How do you do it?" he whispered, voice ragged. She drew him forward, step by determined step. "I remember who I am, and who we are together. That is stronger than any echo." Her conviction steadied him. Together they pressed on, emerging from the corridor into open light. Ceres's grip lingered at his waist, their bond deepening, the pain of doubt replaced by an ache of gratitude and something deeper. The path led to the surge of Genesis, a river of raw creation energy, its currents wild and unbridled. Mist rose from its surface, swirling with color and promise, the air thick with unformed possibility. A single misstep would mean oblivion. Jalen studied the currents, brow furrowed. "We have one chance. If I weave a bridge, you'll need to focus the cipher's power, stabilize it so we can cross." Ceres nodded, determination shining in her silver eyes. She placed her hands on his shoulders, her touch steady and grounding. "I trust you, Jalen. Let me help." He reached into the weave, gathering the wild strands of creation. Ceres channeled the resonance cipher, her energy amplifying his efforts. Their powers entwined, forming a shimmering path across the roaring torrent. Pressed together, breathless and sweating from the strain, they edged across the bridge, every muscle taut with effort and hope. Halfway across, Jalen's knees buckled. Ceres caught him, her lips brushing his scaled cheek in a silent promise. He looked up, meeting her eyes, and for a heartbeat the universe narrowed to that fragile, trembling connection. He pressed his lips to her cheek, his breath shuddering, and she closed her eyes, surrendering to a longing as vast as the stars. They made it across, collapsing on the far bank, laughter and relief mingling as they caught their breath. Every trial stripped away another barrier, revealing the yearning and hope beneath. At last, they stood before the heart of Lysara. It was a swirling vortex of dimensional force, color and shadow folding endlessly inwards, the air charged with potential and dread. The ground trembled beneath their feet, reality straining at the seams. Ceres's awe and fear warred in her gaze as she readied the resonance cipher, its core pulsing in time with her heartbeat. "This is it," she breathed. "Once we begin, there's no turning back." Jalen took her hand, his touch sure. "We do this together. I'm with you." The ritual demanded perfect harmony. Jalen began to weave countercurrents, threading energy through the storm, his mind reaching for the rhythm Ceres set. She channeled the cipher's resonance, her power wrapping around his, amplifying and shaping. They moved in tandem, bodies close, their movements echoing a cosmic dance, every step, every breath aligned. Energy surged between them, the vortex responding to their union. Ceres's voice, low and unwavering, chanted the Zephyrian invocation. Jalen followed, lending his own resonance, human and Zephyrian notes intertwining in the charged air. The vortex roared, reality fracturing and healing in the same breath. The room became a whirl of motion and light, the boundaries between self and other dissolving. Jalen's mind brushed Ceres's, a flood of memory, hope, fear, and longing coursing between them. Their partnership was no longer just necessity, it was destiny, written in the very fabric of the universe. Then the alarm screamed, a discordant wail that shattered the ritual's focus. Zephyrian loyalists, faces set in grim determination, stormed the chamber, weapons raised, shouting commands. "Step away from the heart! Surrender!" Jalen's concentration wavered. The weave threatened to unravel. Ceres leapt between him and the intruders, her staff spinning, a shield of energy flaring to life. "Jalen!" she called, voice fierce, the bond between them burning brighter than ever. "Hold the weave. I will protect you." He nodded, locking his focus, sweat pouring down his face as he struggled to maintain the pattern. Ceres fought with a grace born of desperation and purpose, staff flashing, energy crackling. Every blow she struck was a promise, a vow to defend their future. Jalen held the weave, heart pounding, knowing that in this crucible of chaos and love, their partnership was now a matter of survival, as well as destiny. The chamber erupted in chaos. Zephyrian loyalists surged through the archways, plasma spears blazing, their voices sharp with fury and fear. Ceres moved with desperate resolve, her staff a streak of blue and silver as she parried each attack, her armor flaring with every glancing blow. She spun and lunged, her form a blur against the storm of hostile energy, but there was no time to savor victory. Every heartbeat brought new threats. Jalen knelt at the center of ancient sigils, the symbols burning under his hands as he poured his will into the stabilizing weave. His mind stretched, seeking fragile harmonies within the churning maelstrom of the heart. He conjured shields, rippling arcs of force, that deflected the loyalists' fire and cast shimmering barriers around Ceres. Sweat ran in rivers down his face, his vision narrowing to the thread between chaos and order. "Jalen, focus!" Ceres called out, her voice taut as she deflected another spear. "The heart is destabilizing." "I know," he gritted, teeth clenched, every muscle burning as the heart of Lysara thrashed. The vortex above them spun wildly, colors bleeding into one another, the air crackling with the threat of collapse. Jalen could feel it fighting him, its ancient intelligence resisting their touch, seeking to unmake everything. "I can't hold much longer." "You must," she urged, intercepting a blow aimed at his unguarded side. Sparks exploded across her armor, the scent of scorched alloy sharp in the air. "Just a little more, Weaver." Jalen's hands shook as he wove new patterns, every strand a plea for balance. He caught a glimpse of Ceres, her jaw set in grim defiance, blue scales glowing with sweat and adrenaline as she fought back two, then three assailants at once. She took a blow to the shoulder, armor crackling, but spun to deliver a stunning arc of energy, dropping one of the loyalists with a single precise strike. The heart's fury surged, battering Jalen with waves of energy. His body convulsed, but he refused to yield. He reached deeper, drawing on every memory of Ceres's touch, her voice, her faith. The weave steadied for a heartbeat. Then a loyalist, bolder than the rest, unleashed a blast of raw force. Jalen's shield shuddered, fracturing with a tortured shriek. The blast punched through the barrier, a comet of searing light hurtling straight at him. His eyes widened, his defenses too slow to rise. "Jalen!" Ceres cried. In that suspended instant she moved, hurling herself between him and the blast, staff discarded, arms wide. The impact struck her squarely, energy crackling and flaring. She was thrown across the sigil, crashing hard against the crystalline floor. Her body spasmed, and for a terrible moment she lay motionless. "Ceres!" Jalen's focus shattered, fear and pain flooding his mind, the heart's chaos gnawing at the edges of his control. The weave faltered, the vortex above them growing more violent. All around, loyalists pressed closer, scenting victory. But Ceres stirred. She pushed herself up on trembling arms, her breathing ragged, her face a mask of pain and stubborn will. Blood shimmered along her jaw, and her scales flickered with each breath. Yet when she looked at Jalen, her gaze was fierce, unyielding, a command and a promise. "Finish it," she whispered, her voice raw but unwavering. "Don't stop now. I believe in you." Jalen's fear crystallized into resolve. He nodded once, lips pressed tight, and dove back into the weave. He found Ceres's energy signature, her will, her courage, and anchored himself to it. Drawing on every ounce of strength, he resumed the ritual, channeling the heart's raging power into the stabilizing pattern they had forged together. Ceres dragged herself across the floor, the resonant cipher clutched in her fist. She reached the swirling core, pressing the device to its pulsating center. Light spilled out, white and blue and gold, a tide that swept the chamber. "Jalen, now!" she shouted, voice rising above the storm. He reached out, their hands meeting across the sigil, and in that instant, their energies fused. The sensation was overwhelming. Exquisite pain, blinding joy, the boundaries between them dissolving. Jalen felt her heartbeat, her memories, her longing. Ceres felt his determination, his hope, the warmth that had always been reserved for her. The heart's chaos stilled, its energy harmonizing with the twin frequencies of their souls. The ancient vortex pulsed in time with their joined breath, the universe itself holding its breath. The loyalists staggered, awe and confusion written across their faces as the violent storm faded to a brilliant, serene glow. All at once, the tension broke. Jalen and Ceres collapsed together, limbs entwined amid the ruined sigils. Their chests heaved in unison, exhaustion and triumph mingling in every gasp. Around them silence reigned, no alarms, no shouts, only the quiet hum of a universe stabilized. Ceres pressed her forehead to Jalen's, her voice a trembling whisper. "You did it. We did it." He smiled, brushing sweat and blood from her cheek. "You saved me. Again." Their hands found each other, fingers weaving together with the ease of something inevitable. The bond between them was unspoken, but undeniable. A connection forged in cosmic fire and trial. In that hush, surrounded by the awestruck loyalists and the gentle pulse of a healed heart, they lay entwined, knowing the universe had been changed forever by their union. As a new dawn broke over the heart of Lysara, its once destructive force now pulsed with gentle equilibrium. Warm light filtered through the fractured crystal, casting soft patterns across the chamber floor. The maelstrom of energy that had once threatened to consume everything was calm, its rhythm steady, a heartbeat of hope and restoration. Saris stood at Jalen's side, both of them bruised and exhausted, but upright. The loyalists who had fought so fiercely against them now stepped forward in hesitant silence, weapons lowered. Their faces reflected confusion, fear, and awe as they beheld the changed heart. Saris met their gazes, her voice strong but tender. "It is not destroyed," she said, sweeping her arm toward the gently spinning core. "The heart has been healed, brought into balance. The cycle of decay is ended. We have a new beginning." Murmurs rippled through the group. Some knelt in reverence, others wept, shoulders shaking. As understanding spread, so too did relief and a cautious sense of hope. Jalen watched the transformation, pride for Saris swelling in his chest. Her people looked to her now not as a weapon, but as a guide. Moments later, the arrival of the Helios Accord shattered the fragile hush. Their delegation entered the chamber, armored and alert, Director Miles at the forefront. His gaze swept over the scene, the Zephyrians, the healed heart, the pair at its center. "Jalen," Miles called, his tone wary but curious. "Is it done? What happened here?" Jalen exchanged a glance with Saris, then stepped forward. "It's over. The heart was never meant to be destroyed, only healed. Saris and I, together we recalibrated its resonance. The decay is stopped." Saris nodded, her silver eyes shining with conviction. "Our conflict nearly doomed us all. But unity, not conquest, was the answer. The heart required both of us. Both our peoples." A silence fell, heavy with the weight of history. Then slowly Miles nodded. "Then let's build something new, together." In the days that followed, the chamber became a place of healing and dialogue. Once an arena of violence and fear, it now welcomed both Zephyrians and humans. They sat in circles on the crystalline floor, trading stories and grievances, sharing dreams of a future no longer ruled by suspicion. The heart of Lysara hovered above them, its light a gentle reminder of their shared survival. Jalen and Saris became the unspoken center of these gatherings. Sometimes they spoke at length, recounting their harrowing journey, describing the spectral guardians, the corridor of echoes, the river of Genesis. Other times, they sat quietly, shoulders touching, hands entwined, listening as old enemies found the courage to speak honestly for the first time. Late one evening, when the others had drifted away and the chamber was bathed in the heart's soft glow, Saris and Jalen lingered together on the polished stone. A hush settled over them, filled only by the steady pulse of the core. Saris looked at him, her features softer than he had ever seen. "Do you know what I admire most about you, Weaver?" she asked, her voice a silken thread. Jalen smiled, brushing a thumb over her knuckles. "I'm afraid to ask. My stubbornness?" She laughed, a low, musical sound. "Your ingenuity, the way you see patterns where others see chaos. You changed the fate of worlds, Jalen, because you believe things could be different." He looked down, a flush rising to his cheeks. "I had help. Your strength, your faith in me, kept me going when everything else failed." She leaned in, her forehead resting lightly against his. "You taught me to trust in more than tradition, to risk the unknown. I am grateful for you, Weaver. Grateful for us." The intimacy between them was no longer charged with desperation, but deepened by trust. Jalen cupped her cheek, his hand gentle as he studied the glimmering patterns of her scales. "You are remarkable, Saris. For your people, for the universe, for me." She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. The distance that had once defined them, human and Zephyrian, reality weaver and sentinel, was gone. Only longing remained, and the courage to embrace it. He kissed her, softly at first. a question and an answer in the same breath. She responded, her lips warm and yielding, her hands threading through his hair. The kiss grew, tentative affection blooming into fierce passion. Their armor was shed, first with trembling fingers, then with laughter and whispered reverence. They explored each other's bodies as if learning new constellations, every scar and every sigh a testament to survival, to trust hard-won, to the longing that had simmered through every battle and every quiet moment in the dark. Afterward, they lay tangled together, breath slowing, the glow of the heart painting them in shifting hues. Saris traced circles along Jalen's chest, her voice a murmur. "Do you think we can keep this peace?" He pressed a kiss to her brow. "If we fight for it as fiercely as we fought for each other, I think we can." Their laughter mingled, soft and honest. Outside the chamber, the universe's recovery would be slow, wounds of trust and faith needing time to heal. But the heart of Lysara now beat steadily, a monument to truth, courage, and impossible love. News of the transformation spread. Both Helios Accord envoys and Zephyrian elders traveled to the chamber, offering promises of alliance, their suspicions softened by the living evidence before them. Once foes, humanity and the Zephyrians now stood on the threshold of something new, bound by the sacrifice and union of their champions. Each day, more voices joined the dialogue, and the possibility of peace became less a dream, more a reality. At the center of it all, Jalen and Saris, Reality Weaver and Sentinel, embraced the unknown together. Their love, born in conflict and forged by cosmic trial, now shone as a beacon in the vast, healing cosmos. The heart of Lysara pulsed on, and with each beat, a new era dawned. That's the end of the story. You can leave us a tip or become a channel member. This greatly helps our team improve the quality of our videos. You can send a tip using the Super Thanks button right below the video. We truly appreciate each and every one of you who has subscribed and supported us. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.